for calling in. We'll go straight to questions today. And let's start out with Chip Towers and Dean Legge.
Yeah, Coach, just wondering if you had any good news on the injury front today, getting any guys back. Yesterday, you weren't sure what that was going to look like.
Yeah, Kendall's practicing a black jersey, done really well. I wouldn't say he's full speed, but I'd say he's pretty close. Hopefully going to be able to play. Richard's taking probably 25% of his reps that he would normally take. He's probably not ready. I would say he's the furthest from those guys. And Jordan's looked good. What Jordan's done a really good job of is being in conditioning shape. So he's practiced really hard and looked good.
Thank you.
Kirby, this is something you touched on yesterday. I'm trying to sort of get an understanding on, has the NCAA given y'all guidance as it relates to the 85 plus whatever moving into 21? You talked a little bit yesterday about how this is going to be tough for y'all to juggle. Has there been any feedback, whatever you want to call it, from that organization in terms of how y'all are supposed to handle spring moving forward?
Yes and no. I mean, the feedback is that the seniors that choose to come back for an extra year of eligibility don't count on the 85. Okay, so that's a bonus. Okay, you're working off your 85. You assume those guys are going to be gone. They've got the flexibility to come back. That's great. I think that's the right thing to do. I think that's super. But now try to make decisions for your organization. Mid-year is a different circumstance. So everything doesn't mesh, okay? So for us to bring in a mid-year, let's say we have 5 mid-years. That's not the case at all. But let's say we have 5 mid-years that want to come. We have to have a spot for every one of them to come. So for every senior that elects to stay, we don't have a mid-year spot. So even though they won't count on the 85, we don't have a spot for them to come. So, we don't really control what seniors stay, but we certainly want to give them the flexibility. But if we have more mid-years that want to come than seniors that want to leave, we have a problem. So I don't think that all the things mesh real well, especially if you're a program that has a shot at a lot of mid-years. What's different about this year? Kids aren't in high school. So why should I stay for my second semester? So we're looking at, and I don't know other schools, maybe they're the same way, we're looking at the possibility of anywhere from 14 to 20 mid-year enrollees. So let's say we have 20 mid-year enrollees that want to come. We don't have 20 spots. So, but yet the seniors won't count next year, but they're eating spots right now. So it just doesn't add up, doesn't make perfect sense. So it's a dilemma that we have to deal with. And you also have programs that have juniors. So you don't know, juniors, they haven't declared yet, but yet we're having a signing date before the juniors declare. We've been saying for a while, the timing is not accurate, and it really causes some mismanagement. And the people that suffer from that are the high school kids that maybe told one thing and then say, well, I thought you could be mid-year. Well, maybe you can't be mid-year. It's just a number of how many spots you got.
I'm sorry, just to quickly follow up. Has the NCAA said specific, how has their communication been with the institutions and the leagues? Have y'all heard a lot from them on this front, or are they, this sounds bad, making it up as they go along?
No, I don't think they're making it up as they go along. They've told us that the kids are going to have the ability to come back, but they don't know, every coach has to manage that himself. So they've been in communication in terms of, the seniors getting another extra year of eligibility. That's why to them it doesn't matter. Like, well, they don't count. They're not factoring in that they do count for spring, and it removes a spot that, and I mean, shoot, I'd love to have every senior back. You know what I mean? Like, the seniors are the most valuable parts of your team. I'd love to have every one of them back, but not knowing is what's tough.
Okay, let's go to Anthony Dasher and then Zach Klein.
Hey, Coach. This may be a knock-on-wood type question for you, but what's been the most impressive thing about the way your team has been able to adhere to all the COVID protocols and do y'all's part to keep playing?
I guess the most impressive thing have been the negative tests, the fact that we haven't had a lot of positives. And like you said, knock on wood, because Ron Corson has reminded me many times, you're only as good as your last test. And it can change so quick, and it can shut things down so quick. But number one, we got a really good facility. Number two, we've got unbelievable staff here who do an unbelievable job of cleaning it and keeping it clean. And I'm not saying that other places don't, and that's why they have their problem. But I think our community has done a good job, and we've done a really good job inside our building. And, you know, credit goes to our players too, because they've obviously done a pretty good job of taking care of each other and not exposing each other.
Kirby, you've talked a lot about Richard's physicality and how he's coming back health-wise. How are his spirits? How's he holding up mentally through all this?
Well, I think he likes being back out there. You know, he wants to get out there for more reps. It's hard because, you know, for every rep you give him, that's somebody else that doesn't get one, and you don't get to prepare a younger player. And if he was ready to play, we'd want to give him all the reps. But he's got to work himself back. He's still not 100%, and I love that he's pushing through that, because a lot of times you have a talented player that's uncomfortable going back and not being his old self. Well, he's never going to be his old self until he pushes through this kind of growing pains he's got to get through to get back. And he's pushing his way back. I just don't think he's going to be ready this week.
Okay, let's go to Seth Emerson and Mark Weiser.
Kirby, another, I guess, complication with the offseason is the transfer rule. Is your understanding that the one-time exemption thing will come into place? I think the last thing they said was August 1 of next year. So this year, like anybody that transfers in this year, it won't take place. How much does that like figure into your all's thinking between now and then?
Yeah, I mean, we've known that for a while, you know, like that's sitting out there. And I think, you know, we understand that kids are going to be able, I mean, really always have been able to, but since the portal, I mean, they're free to kind of go. I think that everybody's understanding is that the one-time transfer rule is going to hit. It's just a matter of when. And if that goes into effect August, then the kids that would have left in January would then possibly be eligible. But there's still a lot to be done on that in terms of, does that include interconference? Because it was a one-time thing, and I don't know, you know, which way that's headed in our conference. Certainly, everybody has their opinion, and Sankey made a decision on that in terms of allowing guys to play. But what's that going to be moving forward in terms of inside our conference versus just all across the country?
Kirby, I wanted to ask you, last season, Dan Lanning, his first year as defensive coordinator, was pretty consistent showing from the defense, I guess, with the exception of the LSU game. More challenging, obviously, this year. How has he handled that with the guys on defense, and what have you seen from him as far as, you know, facing adversity for his guys?
He hits it head on. You know, he addresses it like any great coach would. I mean, as a young coordinator, you go through that and you own up to things that you could do better, and you confront and demand things that the players could do better. But we're never going to be a program or staff that points blame at players. That's not what we're about. We go back to work, and we try to find a better way to do it. And that's what he's done. You know, he's really good at what he does. He's a great motivator. He's a great leader. He's got a really good defensive staff here. So it's not just Dan. We got about 7 or 8 guys over there that work really hard at getting information, relationships with players, motivating players, finding new ideas, finding new schemes other people are doing. And Dan benefits from that staff. But he's the face, and he's the leader of that group, stands in front of them, and he takes ownership when he needs to take ownership, and he challenges when he needs to challenge.
Just a quick follow-up. I think I've heard you talk about eye control a lot. Is that the one common thread that's on games that you guys haven't played up to your standard?
I would say that would be the Florida game. Eye control was very lacking. I'm not going to necessarily say that's the case. Alabama game, it wasn't really eye control. There was 1 or 2 plays there. A lot of it was tackling, really good plays by them, where you got guys covered and they make plays. But you know, consistently, I would say that it's been different things. But the lack of eye control probably showed up most in the Florida game.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Jake Rowe and then Brandon from Macon.
Kirby, can you give us an update on Trey Hill and kind of what everything that's gone down with him injury-wise there in the last couple of weeks, and then who is kind of ready to step in there at center, or will Van Pran and Erickson both get looks? How is that going to work out for you guys?
Yeah, both those guys are working there and doing a good job. Trey he had a meniscus that he was going to have repaired after the season, and then I guess last week sometime he injured his other meniscus, so he went ahead and got both of them cleaned up, and he's good. He's already off a scooter, moving around. getting ready to hopefully bounce back. You know, it's a cleanup more than it was a major surgery. So we're hopeful to get him back at some point. And those other guys are working really hard, doing a good job out there.
Hey, Kirby, I want to ask you about Determina Johnson. So when you guys recruited him a couple of years ago, I kind of am aware of the story of his relationship with Coach Lanning and everything. So as he kind of finishes his career here, is he the type of guy who y'all look for in a junior college prospect, a guy who brings that experience and that leadership?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go to the junior college ranks, you want to get a phenomenal player that can impact your team immediately. And you know, he had an injury early in camp. The first year he got here, he had a high ankle sprain, and it really slowed him down in terms of developing and getting better. He's got a lot of natural talents. He's extremely athletic. He's fast. He plays the Sam backer position really well, and the fact that he can set edges, play man to man, and rush the passer. And I think he's just starting to really come into his own. He's gotten more and more comfortable with our calls and our games and our pass rush stuff. He's rushed more this year. You know, last year he and Adam were spying more times than they were rushing, and now they're rushing more on the whole, and he's doing a nice job of that. So we're very pleased with his growth, and he's really a tremendous leader at practice. He practices really hard, and he takes coaching really well.
Okay, let's go to Mike Griffith and then William from the Red and Black.
Kirby, looking at Missouri's offensive numbers, you mentioned their quarterback the other day. What are they doing right now that's made them so effective on this, I guess I'd say, an offensive tear they've been on with all the points they've been scoring lately?
Well, the quarterback's very accurate. He throws a really catchable ball. I mean, I've been extremely impressed with this guy's composure, poise, and he's going to be there for a while. He's young, and he knows coverages. As soon as he sees a coverage, he knows where to go with the ball. So, you know, he throws a really good deep ball. So when you play contested press man all over the field, he makes throws and they make 50-50 catches. When you play a zone and you spot drop all over, he knows where to go with the ball and he completes it. And he's got a really good balanced run game to go with it. And part of being a quarterback is being good decision makers. Eli and them do a great job of run pass conflicts where there's a rocket guy that he can hand it to, or he can throw it to, and then he can hand it off. Well, if you're not in the perfect call, then they can get you here, they can get you there, and they're tough to defend. And he's going to be great for our league because when you look at what he does, there'll be people copycatting what he does to add that to their offense, because his history at App State was that. His history at NC State was that. He was really good at creating offense.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to get your thoughts on Missouri's ability to go through, 2 consecutive off weeks and then come back as strong as they have. COVID aside, do you think it's beneficial from a coaching standpoint to have almost a mini camp in the middle of the season, or do you think something like that would hurt more times than it helps?
Well, it's all about how you take it and how you manage it. They had guys out. So, I mean, I don't know how much they practiced. I got no idea if they did a mini camp or practiced or just walked through the guys they had. But part of the reason you can't play a game is you got guys out. I think it certainly helps the youth on their team. And when you have a new offensive system, time helps. I know that from ours. So the more time you get to get guys experience, it helps you operate more efficiently. I mean, we're so much more efficient now than we were at the beginning of the year.
Okay, let's go to Connor Riley, and then we'll see if Alex McQuaid has a question.
Yeah, Kirby, how has the transfer portal impacted how you recruit players, especially knowing while you might not necessarily win the recruiting battle the first time around when they're high school prospects, you might be recruiting them again later on as prospects when they're in the transfer portal?
I mean, it hasn't changed any. I mean, what changed? I mean, nothing changed. That I was always considerate and nice when a guy didn't come anyway. I mean, I don't know if there was a portal when D-Rob came out. I can't remember, but I mean, I wasn't mad at D-Rob when he didn't come. I told him congratulations, best wishes, and let us know if we can ever help him with anything. So, I mean, it never changed because there was a portal. I mean, that the portal is just a public way of saying I'm a free agent. I mean, the way we recruit is the way we recruit. If they choose to go in the portal, great. And if there's kids in the portal then that we had a relationship with, then we're going to, communicate with them if we're interested. But it hasn't changed the way we recruited.
Hey, Kirby, I'm just curious, obviously we heard the news about Michigan and Ohio State today, and I was just curious as somebody who's had that happen to them with, as a head coach and games being moved on your schedule. Obviously it's different. Years were postponed. This is a cancellation, but what are those moments like right after as you're trying to scramble? What's the next move? What's best for the program, but also what's best for everybody involved?
My feelings are probably appreciate the games you do have, appreciate the games you did play or you're going to play, because you don't control the ones you're not. And you certainly better not take the ones that you got coming up for granted, because you're not guaranteed any others. So, look, 6 months ago, I don't know that we would have even thought we were going to have this season. And the SEC, I know, is got great leadership and is doing all they can to get every one of these games in. And if we end up hitting 90%, I think that's pretty good. But to each their own.
All right, we got time for 2 more questions. Let's take anybody who wants to jump in.
Hey, Kirby. We were talking with Zamir, I think it was a couple weeks ago, and the idea of him being so quiet came up, and it got me to thinking, obviously you've talked about wanting players to be verbal and things like that, but there's obviously a place for the quiet guys, the ones that don't say much. What's kind of your view of those guys? Because it seems like they have a place in the locker room as well, but it's almost maybe intriguing a little bit to know what it's like to coach a player like that and kind of what your experience has been with players like that.
Yeah, I don't mind at all guys like that. The guys I've been around like that are usually the hardest workers. Aziz is like that. Kobe's a little like that. Samir's a little like that. And, you want to build leadership, and we do a lot of character and leadership development. And we do that through, outside sources, through inside sources. We try as coaches to develop that trait, that characteristic trait, but you can't force that trait on anybody. The greatest trait to have is hard work and great work ethic, which those guys have. If it's quiet, it's quiet. And that's an example setter. If it gets to the point they need to be verbal and they're willing to do it, then that's great too.
Earlier, Kirby, you said you didn't know if the SEC was going to allow interconference transfers going forward. Do you have an opinion on what you would like to see the SEC do in that situation going forward?
Well, you want an honest answer on that? I can give you the stock answer, which is, I'm indifferent. But as every coach in the SEC probably wouldn't admit, it's all about who they can get based on how they want that rule. So if you got the guy sitting out there that's going to change your team, guess what you want? You want it to change, right? And if you're playing against them, you may not want it to change. So it's a selfish world out there, and every guy is trying to do what gives his team the best chance to win, and it really should be based on what's best for the players and what's best for the longevity of our conference. And I think, everybody in the public would say what's best for the player to be able to go and play interconference. And, some inherent part of me says, I just don't know if my son was at a place and he was not playing or he was disgruntled, and I'd want to know why it was that way. And then I'd tell him, well, you need to try harder. You need to do better. You need to continue to work. You need to continue to grow, because something about that in this world, I think, makes you a better person. And sometimes we don't demand that kids do that, and we give them the easy way out. And you know what? They can find a lot of other schools that will let them go to them. It's a really tough situation, because I don't say that from the guys who've left here. It's not about that for me. It's about what's best for our conference, what's best for our programs, and what's best for the game of football, and what's best for the kids. And that's why you guys like to talk about it, because there's no perfect or right answer.
Thank you, Coach Smart. Thanks, everyone.